Welcome inside the Broncos podcast studio for another episode of Altitude Advantage. I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table, back from bye week, our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. Excited to be back here where we belong, getting ready for week 13. A much-needed bye week, I feel like. I know Broncos country missed us. We're going to talk some comments that you guys left during the time that we've been out, some Wil Lutz action, happening around the building, the mindset exiting the bye, and much more on this episode as we kick off week 13. How excited are you to be back? How was your bye week?
It was good. It was quiet, relaxing, refreshing. How about you?
Refreshing, I think, is the key point. I think the bye week came at the perfect time, not only for the staff, but for players. It just felt really good coming after a huge divisional win. Staying at 9-2, and it was nice to watch Sunday football and just not be stressed out.
It was, yeah. And that I could get used to that. Maybe the second weekend of January we could have a nice Sunday off. We'll see. Listen, I think when I look at this stretch coming up, my thought is like it's about to get real.
Yeah.
And this 9-2 start is great. The Broncos are in really good shape, and we'll talk about where things are and what their mindset is and their attitude and all that. But it's like, these final 6 games, there's some tough ones in here. There's some important ones in here. A primetime game, multiple primetime games, actually. And it's like, this is the stretch run, and you've put yourself in position to do something. Now it's time to go do it and then get in the dance and see what happens. And so this is going to be, like, I think you're right. The bye week came at a good time to mentally recharge, physically recharge. But it's about to be the next, hopefully, 10, 11 weeks are going to be just I think they're going to fly by, but also going to be some important football games played. So excited to get into it and be back and get ready to go.
Yeah, the Broncos are 9-2, and a lot of guys have said it's a race to 10. Once you get that 10th win, then you can kind of really start focusing on other things that they might be thinking about, like seeding and what the AFC picture looks like. But I know the comments were popping while we were gone. We appreciate you guys listening to that, episode ahead of the bye week. It was really exciting. Really just looking ahead and looking big picture. So what's Broncos country chattering about?
Yeah, we so this is from our episode after the win over the Chiefs. Lots of comments here.
We love it. We love it.
We do. If you want to go comment, go to the Broncos official YouTube page. Leave a comment. We'll read it here. Casey Crosby says, a great win. If only the experts could talk about experts in quotes, but not us because we're experts without quotes. Could talk about the Broncos' dominant defense rather than what's up with the Chiefs. Keep up the great content. And W.R. Curtis Jr. says, Bo is cold-blooded in the down-to-the-wire moments. Scott says this game showed our resiliency and grit. Bo really has moxie when it's most crucial, and this defense is special. If this team can start to generate takeaways, they'll make the no-fly zone look pedestrian. Wow, that's...
Whoa.
We'll see. I'd love to see that. Love to see a complete game in all 3 phases, Scott says. Crushing It show, another podcast maybe. The teams that win games like this win Super Bowls. Gritty, selfless teams that lay it out when it matters most go on runs. This win feels like the turning of the page to begin a new era. Love listening to you guys. Big moment Bo will continue to prove the doubters wrong, and this defense will continue to be insane. Go Broncos. Emerald Light says, got to give it to the fans. They were really loud in that stadium.
Yeah, a lot of the players could not talk enough about how much Broncos country came and just really disrupted the Chiefs in that game. It was very loud.
It was loud.
It was very loud.
And
that's what we're in the press box.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Adrian Fernandez says, let's go Broncos. Bo Nix is that dude. Have a feeling the AFC will go through Denver. And the AFC Championship game will be Broncos versus Patriots or Broncos versus Colts. My Super Bowl prediction is Broncos versus 49ers. Have the Broncos beating the 49ers 35-28 in the Super Bowl. Okay, you heard it here first.
Ooh.
Bree says, I live in upstate New York. I'm a firm believer that the vast majority of NFL fans are not going to give Bo Nix and the Broncos a recognition they deserve. I don't understand what more Bo and his team have to do to get people to take them seriously. They're definitely on the cusp of being Super Bowl contenders. As long as you keep winning, doesn't matter who gives you respect. Exactly. As long as you keep winning. Bill Bellel, our guy. Woohoo, another dub day. Most importantly, that was the Chiefs in a 2-game swing. Broncos are in command of the AFC West. All they have to do is keep winning. They appear to have their fate in their own hands. Mm-hmm. And then he said, maybe by the time we get to week 13, the defense will all be on the field together. See about that. see how it goes. AK Southsida says this defense should be named the Mile High Maulers. Thanks for the great content.
Ooh, what do you think of that nickname? Mile High Maulers.
I like it. Fishy Fam 19, not to be confused with Fishy Fam 18. That's not this person. Aric, maybe I missed it, but last cast, not even pod. I like that. You say listen to the pod, listen to the cast. Even better. You said you were going to give us a crazy stat if the Broncos beat the Chiefs. Guess what? The Broncos won. I didn't hear the crazy stat you promised. Maybe I missed it. Thanks. You and Elisa are amazing. And then Yellow Radio said, was it the stat he said comparing the past 10 and 11 seasons when the Broncos went 9-2? That was it.
Oh.
Last 10 times the Broncos went 9-2 or better to start a season. 7 of those times they went to the Super Bowl. That's a pretty, that's 70% of the time. It works every time. So, yeah, Fishy Fan 19, that's the stat. Sorry. Should have called it out more specifically.
Should have highlighted it more.
Rombomb01 or triple, what do we say, 001? Didn't expect you guys to read my simple comment on the show. Now I'm embarrassed. Yes, the 001 is meant as a reference to the 00 agents from Bond. Seemed really cool when I made this account back in 2008. It's still cool, Rombomb 001. Maybe since you're a potential spy, I should probably take it easy. You'll come get me. What? Some of these are funny. Funny. I can't read them all, but they're funny.
Lord.
Man. The rest of the comments if you want. Those are the comments I can read. Thank you all.
Just know that he had a very big smile on his face as he was reading the comments that he's not allowed to read on air. And for those of you guys that missed us during the bye week, our social team was on it. They posted a lot of great content. One of my favorites was over 10-minute video of just all the sacks that the defense has had this season, which stands at 49. Honestly, we have so many great highlights from the first half of this season. A big highlight is the production of Wil Lutz and what he's been able to do, multiple game-winning field goals, his calmness, what he's been able to bring to the team, how the locker room loves and respects him and trusts him, especially around this league where we've seen kickers struggle, especially this season. He's been that reliable guy for this locker room, and he just signed a 3-year extension with the Broncos. He spoke to the media earlier on Monday, really sharing his excitement and just how happy he is to be here and continuing to just be part of what's being built here. He specifically talked about you feel the change, and now he knows that he's going to be part of that change for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think there's 2 elements to this. One is the on-field performance, right? And Wil has made 3 game-winning kicks right at the buzzer this year. He's got 5 kicks that were the eventual game winner. He's got 8 game-winning kicks since the start of 2023, which is the most of any kicker in the NFL. And his career field goal percentage in Denver would be the highest of any kicker in Broncos history. So he's really good and consistent. And, outside a couple of blocks and a couple of misses on long field goals, he's been really consistent. And then there have been games where he's made, I think back to that game in London, he made a long one, I believe it was 57 yards. He made I think it was 54 yards against the Chiefs to tie the game. That was a big kick. Yeah. And so on the field, he has this kind of coolness. He's calm. He's able to step up and drill these kicks in high-pressure situations. There's no doubt that if the Broncos are able to go on a Super Bowl run or any sort of playoff run, at some point you're going to need to hit a big kick or you're going to need to drive down before halftime and drill one. Yeah. And so to have a kicker that you trust and you believe in and that if you need him to in the moment, he can step up and make that kick, that's a big deal because, we see games every year, like you said, swing and change based on the performance of a kicker. And unfortunately, sometimes the missed kick. I mean, I think back to that game yesterday between the Cowboys and Eagles. There were a couple of big missed kicks, both of which could have swung the game. And so to have a guy that you can trust and you put in that position, that's a big deal. Obviously, Sean Payton believes in him. He brought him here from New Orleans. Wil had kind of a tricky start to his career in terms of trying to latch on, and it took John Harbaugh calling Sean Payton saying, hey, I've got a guy that I think could work out for you. Obviously works out in New Orleans, comes to Denver, and that stability that he now has, that's great. But then I also think there's the off-field element, which is that he's a captain. He's a guy that other people clearly get along with. And just it's not always the case with kickers it's a different sort of job. And so for Wil to fit in and be one of the guys, I think is important. And then there's this element of who he is as a barometer for this team and how the change has taken place. And I think he's a good one to look at. Adam Troutman, anyone that came from New Orleans with Sean Payton and knows what it was like there when they were kind of getting rolling and have seen this transition here, I always pay a little bit extra attention when they're talking about that because they know firsthand what it's like and what Sean Payton has done. And so when Wil Lutz talks about, the belief the Broncos have and what they can accomplish, and he talks about the ownership group and saying, this is the place you want to be, that stands out to me because I think he knows, and he was here a couple of years ago, he saw what it was like in 2023. He's seen the growth, also has that external comparison point. I think sometimes for like Cortland and Garrett, for example, they've seen it all here, but they've only seen it here, right? And so when you've been with another team and you've seen that, I think there's a little bit of perspective that comes with it. And Wil Lutz, I think, has his finger on the pulse of this team and kind of what they need and where they're at. And so, yeah, not only is he a good football player, obviously, but from a culture standpoint, fits in. He talked about Sean Payton bringing in the guys that they need to have to do what they want to do, and he's one of those guys. So big congrats to Wil. And, I asked him, hey, how do all these situations so far this year set you up for some big kicks down the stretch? And it sounds like the confidence in the operation is as high as it's ever been. So credit to Wil, and hopefully some more big kicks coming soon.
Yeah, for Wil Lutz, he mentioned that on the sideline, sometimes Bo would look at him. He's like, are you not having fun? And he's like, I'm having a great time. But he also knows that he has to lock in. And it's similar, and it's really fun to see their dynamic because people sometimes feel that way about Bo because he's so calm and so collective. Despite, what the situation is on the field, he always has like this mentality of like, okay, what can I do to help my team win? And Wil kind of has that same grit, which is why they're both captains. And I think the other part of it is just knowing that we've talked about this, and it's really, for me, it's very rewarding to be a part of this when you look back to just a season ago and we're talking about identity and we're talking about this ownership group coming in and wanting to make the Broncos a destination place where players want to come play because the players are talking about how amazing it is, whether it's the training staff or their nutritionists or whatever it is. This is where you want to be. This is where you want to come build. And you clearly saw that during free agency. You clearly saw that with the way the rookies came in and bought into this program. But I think that's part of, as you mentioned, when you pay extra attention when guys talk like that. Because you're like, what we talked about on the outside looking in, they're now saying it from the inside looking out. Like, this is exactly how it is. It's somewhere you want to be. And I think that adds to the mindset that this team has coming out of the bye week, being refreshed, understanding we have a lot that's ahead of us. And yes, it starts with big kicks that Wil Lutz has been able to do, but also starts with this offense and this defense continuing to kind of build on what they've done in the first half of the season.
Yeah, I think, like I said at the beginning, you've put yourself in position now to have a chance, right? And that's all you ask for is to get in the dance, improve your seeding as much as possible, and try to put yourself in position to get home playoff games. And again, it goes back to what Sean Payton said last year in Buffalo. We got to start playing some of these at home. The two focus areas, and I think one of the things that impresses me is it sounds like from listening to Troy Franklin and Wil Lutz, like Sean Payton's not shying away from, hey, we've got an opportunity to go get a high seed, and that this is not like last year where we're battling to get into the playoffs, but you've got to take advantage, and a game here, a game there could be the difference between getting the 1 seed or the 2 seed or the 3. And like, are you able to find a way to have that AFC championship, that potential AFC championship game at home? Like, you never know when a week 16 game could be the difference between going on the road somewhere and playing at home. So I think there's this awareness of what they can accomplish and what they can do. To do that, he mentioned a couple of things Sean Payton did. One is the penalties. And obviously we know kind of the issue that penalties have been so far this year. And Sean Payton talked about them. It's not one player. It's not one guy. I know a lot of fans have pointed to Riley Moss. It's not just Riley, right? Like there's been, whether it's on offense, whether it's defense, special teams, like there have been penalties across the board that they've got to continue to work on and get those numbers down. Because I think you can see, like against the Chiefs, for example, that 3rd and 15 was set up by a penalty, and the Broncos were able to overcome it. But it's difficult to do that down in and down out, series in and series out. So they've got to find a way to improve from a penalty standpoint. And then the other is the turnover margin. And for as good as the Broncos have been and as good as the defense has been, the turnover margin has actually not been all that impressive so far. And they're currently at -3, which is 19th in the NFL. And if you look at it, it's actually, you could argue it's more of a defensive thing than an offensive thing. The Broncos have 12 giveaways, which is the 10th fewest in the NFL, but they only have 9. I don't think that's right. Yeah, so they only have 9 takeaways, which is 27th in the NFL. So we've seen them get a couple. Obviously, you had one against Patrick Mahomes that showed up in a big way. But as Sean Payton said, when you get down the stretch in these games, one turnover here, one there can make the whole difference and give you that extra possession. And especially if you play you get to the playoffs and you play a Buffalo or a high-powered offense, you might need that extra possession to be able to beat those guys or even just to slow them down and keep them off the field. So those are the two things. And the penalties, listen, isn't going to go from where it is now to 0. I think that's tough to do, but can you bring it down? I think that's certainly possible. And then the other thing is, from a turnover perspective, I think this is where you're more likely to see a jump in terms of the Broncos defense has already been really good, and turnovers tend to come in bunches. We hear that. They tend to be something that, like, maybe you're in a dry spell for a while, but they'll end up coming. Mm-hmm. If the defense continues to play at this level, I would assume at some point the turnovers are going to start coming, and that'll put the Broncos in a much better situation. And we've talked about it before. I think back in 2023, the defense had a really good stretch, but it was all fueled by turnovers. And then when they stopped being able to get turnovers, they weren't able to get as many stops. This defense is just getting stops regardless. And so if you then add in the turnovers, it could be something really special. But I think the fact that Sean Payton, again, clearly laid out, here's what we can do. Here are the two things. There's a bunch of things, right, I'm sure, that they're talking about. But as a team, here are two things we've got to be better at. That gives you a clear vision, a clear message, something to focus on. And, we'll talk more about Washington later in the week. But, that'll be something that when you go play Sunday Night Football against the Washington Commanders, a team that sounds like more than likely going to have its backup quarterback in there and Marcus Mariota, a team that's struggling.
But they're coming off their bye week as well.
Yeah, they are, and they'll be rested, and we'll see if they get a couple guys back. But to me, the focus and the thing I'll be watching is, can you improve your penalties? Can you win the turnover battle? And if you can, that would signify to me you're moving in the right direction. And so obviously you want to get a win by any means necessary, and you're not going to complain about any sort of win. But those are two areas where I'll definitely be looking this weekend.
Yeah, the Broncos head to Washington for Sunday Night Football, a big primetime game. Wondering if it was going to be flexed out or not, but it's clear that the Broncos are playing really good football. And I think when you look at a primetime slot, this is also when you get to display it again on a national stage, because everyone's watching kind of what this team is going to do, especially after this bye week. And one of the mindsets that Troy Franklin mentioned when he spoke to the media was just the team wanting to show they can handle each game week by week, one by one, getting a win every week and not looking too far ahead. That's been the mindset every single week. You talk to this guy, they do not deviate from that in the sense of the next opponent is the most important opponent because it's the next one. And they do not downplay what the Commanders are capable of. They don't downplay the playmakers that they do have, regardless of what their record shows. And the truth of the matter is that they're also coming off of a bye week. They last played in Spain, had that loss to the Dolphins. But I think that's one of the things that you kind of think about is how does this team respond in that sense? Because the AFC picture is only going to get tougher. And when you look at what the Patriots did in getting a win, improving to 10-2, the Colts got a huge loss, courtesy of the Chiefs in that game where they were able to come back and steal that one from the Colts. That helps out the Broncos' AFC chance as much as we don't want to see the Chiefs win. But I think when you look at the overall AFC picture, the Patriots, they have Monday Night Football coming up. Obviously, Sunday night will be the Broncos, and then Monday night will be the Patriots. They then play the Bills, the Ravens, the Jets, and the Dolphins to close it out. So you look at their schedule, you kind of see what they can do. You look at the Colts schedule. They play the Texans, who knocked off the Bills this past Sunday. The Jags, who I believe got a win. The Seahawks, the Niners, Jaguars, and then Texans, again, to close out the season. So they have some crucial games coming up as well. It's a tough stretch for both teams. But this Broncos team has a good road ahead of them. As you said, this is when it gets real.
Yeah, I think, and you never know how it's going to play out, right? I think looking at the Colts schedule, it looks like the toughest of the three. Still have to go to Seattle, still have to play the Niners, still have 4 division games left, including the Texans twice, the Jags twice. That to me looks like a tough slate. I think when you look at New England in terms of games that be favored in, their toughest games on paper are hosting the Bills and at Baltimore. And so those are a couple of games where, certainly if you're a Broncos fan, you're cheering for the Bills, you're cheering for the Ravens those weeks. But we're still almost a month away from that, certainly several weeks. Like they don't play the Bills till week 15, the Ravens till week 16. So a lot of it is, can the Broncos control what they can control? And, you play the Commanders this week and the Raiders, both on the road. You're going to have to be ready to go, going to have to be dialed in. And then you get a couple at home, and it's like the Packers will be a huge challenge when they come in here, but you're at home, and I think you feel like part of that is why you want to get home field is when you're here, you've played well and use the crowd to the advantage, and as long as this defense keeps playing at the level it's playing at, I think you're going to be in a lot of games. But this is where, like, and we talked about it way earlier in the season with a game like the Jets in terms of the playoff race in general. This is where if your focus is not on the Commanders and you're worried more about, hey, the seeding for January. And I think there's a distinction because you can be aware of the seeding and still be focused on the Commanders and have that kind of be the goal versus kind of where be too into the seeding and not give this game the proper attention it needs. Right. I think that's where Sean Payton as a coach is so valuable. And we've talked about this again and again, whether before London, after London, before a mini bye with the Raiders, like his team show up and are ready to play and tend to handle these moments well. But you got to be focused on Washington because you don't know, especially with New England, who I would expect it's going to come down to, where a loss might make the difference between playing a game in Foxborough versus here in Denver. And my understanding is that based on the conference record, if the Broncos and Patriots end up tied, Broncos are in good shape. So really you just need to keep pace with the Patriots essentially. And that means finding a way to win, as many games as them. And so we'll watch as that unfolds, but it starts with you, because if you don't take care of your business, then all the scoreboard watching in the world doesn't really matter, right? So, Broncos got to find a way to take care of the Commanders. They're going to be in this spot the rest of the year where it's like they're in the 2 seed. Now they're in the 1. Now they're back in the 2. We'll see what happens with Indy, but it's possible they could even jockey in the 3. But they're going to be in this conversation now for the final 6 weeks. How do you handle it? How do you go about your business, both when you're playing teams that aren't in the playoff race right now and when you play teams that, like the Packers, are fighting for their playoff lives? Like those are dangerous teams. Yeah, and I think it's nice that you want the Broncos to keep winning, but I also think this is a good stretch to get them prepared for the postseason, just in terms of the intensity of playing on Sunday Night Football or playing the Packers or going to Kansas City. Like those are going to feel like big moments, and it'll get the Broncos ready for down the road when it's one and done.
As you mentioned, 2 primetime games. It's going to be Christmas for Thursday night and the Sunday night against the Commanders, and you have 3 of your last 6 against AFC West rivals, which is also going to be key as you kind of face the Raiders on the road. You then go on the road, face the Chiefs, and then host the Chargers. To me, that Jaguars game is one that I'm really looking forward to. The Jaguars have been playing pretty well against teams. They're kind of sneaky a little bit with how they're able to come back in certain games, and not to look too ahead, but that's one game that I'm really interested in. Packers as well. I mean, every single game, you almost adopt the same mentality. Like every single game is important because you know the implications of what it could mean for this team. But I know Sunday night is coming up. That's always fun. Always like mini Super Bowls in a way, because just like all lights, camera action, something about Sunday night that's just very special, especially when you play on the road. And this team, I think, is hungry for it, and having rest, hopefully getting some guys back. We'll see what that looks like during this week. But how much are you just looking forward to the primetime fun of it all as we get ready for Week 13?
Yeah, I think it's about the Broncos playing to their potential. And, if it is Marcus Mariota, like, do what you can to slow that offense down. And if you're Bo Nix and the Broncos offense going against a defense that has struggled at times this year, like, go and do what you do. And I think there's been times where, and certainly we've seen it a lot, right, where 7 of their 9 wins have been by 1 score. And there's nothing wrong with that. Every win in the NFL is hard to come by. But I also think, like, can you go out there and put together a complete performance that shows you've improved some of the things that you want to improve? And, you just get one that helps you take that next step. And so there's all sorts of reasons. Like, you're coming off the bye. You got to refocus. You got to get going again. Can you do that in a place that's going to be loud and you're traveling across the country? Like, it's still a difficult game. It's still an NFL game. And
I guess Sunday night.
Yeah, but can the Broncos find a way to just kind of be at their best and worry about that? And if you do that, I think you're going to look up in 6 weeks and be happy with where you are. But, it's about them, I think.
Yeah. Well, Broncos country is going to be all about you on Thursday, especially when we break down this matchup. Sunday Night Football is always a fun game to break down because it's the only game on TV. It's at night. All spotlights all on you. And we can't wait to break all that down for you guys on Thursday's episodes. Make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But once again, I am your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez, across the table from our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. Again, Broncos are holding strong, 9-2, going into Week 13, looking to extend their win streak as they head into Sunday Night Football. For all the latest, make sure you guys visit DenverBroncos.com and stay tuned with us on Altitude Advantage.